Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there and, more importantly, staying safe. Severe weather ongoing right now. There's been multiple reports of tornadoes, confirmed tornadoes, even as early as this morning. There was a tornado just outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And, it's been some pretty impactful weather today. I haven't heard of any fatalities. I've saw some structural damage out there, and hopefully we keep the fatalities out the picture with this. We can rebuild stuff, but of course we can't replace people's lives. But definitely said a prayer and multiple prayers for you guys out there in Louisiana, Texas, and the rest of the Deep South will be impacted overnight into tomorrow. We're going to touch base on that. Of course, I know there's a lot of great people on YouTube that do weather who are going live right now, keeping people updated. And don't blame you one bit for watching that, especially if you live in the Deep South. But severe weather will continue. And we'll talk on that in this video also. We'll talk about we'll give you an update on this potential winter storm. Well, it isn't potential, it's going to happen. For areas of the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, there could be a big-time ice storm for certain areas. When you talk about that, we give you some updated information on the upper Midwest also. And then we're going to talk about the major pattern change. There is going to be Arctic air surging into the lower 48. And in fact, we're going to switch the video up a little bit. We're going to actually talk about that first. And then we're going to talk about all the other things, sort of work back to front, if you will. So, the last few videos have been a little bit different, but we're going to talk about that right at the beginning, focus a lot of attention on that. And then we'll talk about the severe weather that will be ongoing over to the overnight hours into tomorrow, and then all the other things I just mentioned. So, first off, thank y'all for the incredible support over the last few days. Major growth, and I really appreciate you guys just supporting somebody who has a passion, which is the weather. It means a lot to me. I'm blessed to have an audience to talk about what I love, which is the weather. So thank y'all for that. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you do like it. It goes a long way. And if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put those in the comments below. I write them down on a little notepad, and I pray over them every morning. And I promise you a lot of other people will be praying over your prayer requests also. So let's get rolling here. Like I said, we're going to talk about the pattern change first. Like I said, kind of work back to front, if you will. So let's talk about this, because my confidence is very high that Arctic air is going to surge, and I think that it could come in the form of some kind of big-time Arctic front, meaning it's going to be abrupt. We were kind of thinking this was just going to ooze its way into the central and eastern U.S., but the chances of it just being an abrupt Arctic front, a sharp cutoff, is growing. And I'm not going to compare it to February 2021 because I don't want to spook anybody, in Texas and surrounding states that, suffered with that terrible Arctic outbreak. We're not going to compare it to that. I'm not saying it is, but there's some similarities. But we'll talk about that. 6 to 10 day temperature outlook takes us from the 19th to the 23rd of December. This was issued today. Below average temperature is pretty much guaranteed. And the darker you see these dark purples, think of that as, it's not what the graphic means, but the colder it's going to be pretty much. So the Arctic air is dropping down, guys. It's coming. It's just, how far east is it going to make? There's a lot of questions on some certain things. How far west is it going to dump? The cold air going to kind of come down? It's a big question. This is the 6 to 10 day outlook. Now you match this up, you see below average temperatures all the way into the Carolinas, Georgia, North Florida, all the way up to Maine. This is going to kind of dump into the central U.S. first, and then make its way into the eastern U.S., Ohio valleys, deep south, southeast, the mid-south. Now you compare that with this, and you see the above average chances of precipitation with cold air dropping down. There's going to be a chance of a system that rides this Arctic boundary down, that dumps a lot of snow along this Arctic boundary. Sometimes we call these blue northerns in the middle of the country. It's where, one day your temperatures are around average to above average, and the next day you get knocked into an Arctic air mass, and it could be a blizzard. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but for you folks who've been around for a while, who live in the plains, even as far south as Texas, you know about these blue northerns and how distinct it is, how tight the gradient is, how quickly the weather can change. I've seen some crazy stuff where it's in the 80s one day, and then the next day it's snowing. Denver is famous for that. So, and it's even done it in areas like Dallas. But you look at this and you compare this with this, and you got to wonder, is there going to be any precipitation coming along with this cold air? Now you look at the 8 to 14 day range. This takes us through the 21st to 27th of December. This was issued today. You see how this kind of comes a little bit east. You compare this with this, and you see how the below average temperatures start to move further east. And so right around Christmas time, I think it's going to be a very cold Christmas for the majority of the country. But what we like to see here, if you're a winter weather fan, a cold weather fan, you see these above average temperatures showing up for the Southwest. That tells me that there's ridging building in the Southwest, which means this cold air is going to dump into the central and eastern U.S. So cold holidays coming up. Could be impactful weather. We don't know, but we're going to take a look at a couple things here in a second. But you compare this with the 18-14 day range of precipitation outlook. You see the above average precipitation along the eastern seaboard, along with this cold air starting to make its way in. Do you get some kind of Gulf moisture that tosses some moisture back into this cold air? There's a lot of questions. A lot of people are seeing crazy stuff on their weather apps right now, even in the Southeast. Here in South Carolina, I already got people at my job and just family members starting to ask me, is it going to really snow around Christmas? And people think it's such a cut and dry question, but it's not. It's not, and people ask me it all the time. They'll message me, and it's just not a cut or dry question. If I knew if it was going to snow 13 days out, I would be a millionaire, because if I knew it, I would get it right every time. And nobody knows that stuff. We have a hard time figuring out what's going to happen 5 days from now. But I can tell you, the pattern looks favorable for cold weather coming up. And there's going to be opportunities. And it even mentions it. It mentions it in the Climate Prediction Center discussion that the southern branch, the southern jet stream, if you will have a chance to become active and overrun some of this cold air. It doesn't quote unquote say that, but in general it does. So it's pretty crazy to see. So what we're going to do here, we're going to take a look at the European temperatures compared to average, and then we're going to look at the ensembles and do the same thing with the GFS. Take a look at the GFS, and then look at its ensemble, which is the GFS ensembles. And I'm showing you these two. I'm comparing and contrasting them because I want to tell you how different the operational runs are, especially with the European and its EPS ensembles, which the EPS European ensembles is one of the most reliable model suites out there. It's favored the most when predicting weather further out, and it's just historically more accurate. So let's take a look at the European. Check out what the European does. The operational European model. Sorry, I keep scratching my nose. For some reason, it's itching. But anyways, by the way, I feel great. Probably the best I felt. I just got my taste and stuff back, so I'm feeling great. I can finally taste food again. It's awesome. I can smell stuff. So anyways, we're getting it to the end of this weekend. This first cold front behind this big storm system cools us down for the weekend. We might briefly warm back up, which was something we weren't really thinking 4 or 5 days ago. The ridge might flex a little bit, but this is the European, and I think it's overdoing this by a long shot. But this is what the European shows. Now, don't look at this and get disappointed, because a lot of people are going to look at this and say, oh man, this sucks. It's going to be warm around Christmas. But look what the European shows. We're getting into next Tuesday morning, the 20th, the last Tuesday before Christmas. Look how this cold air, well below average temperatures. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know what the red means in this, and then the pink and the blues mean in this. So this pinkish colors right here, that is temperatures, 15 to 20, 25 degrees below average in Fahrenheit. So this is dropping down. Impressive. I'm sorry, this is Celsius. But in general, just below average temperatures. But this is dropping down here, and just an incredibly cold air mass is dropping down here. Just think of this as well below average temperatures, well above average temperatures. So this Arctic boundary is dropping down into the western U.S. So all of a sudden, you're coming up to, what's the date here? December 23rd, and an incredibly cold air mass in the western U.S., and you're baking in the eastern U.S. And you're thinking, well, what about this cold air mass you were talking about, Mitch, or everybody else? Well, on the European, it all dumps out west. But it's one operational run. Now you look at the ensemble run, and what does it show? Well, the ensemble, sure, it starts to dump the cold air down here on the early next week. It's going to be very cold in the northern plains, Montana, the Dakotas. Frigid air mass drops down. But if you notice, you can already tell, there's warmer anomalies over here, warmer than average temperatures as we're getting into Christmas Eve. but it looks like the axis of this colder air is certainly more east on the ensembles. You compare this with what's, let's back it up a couple frames. You compare this to what this is showing to this much further west. The EPS ensembles, much more reliable, dumps this further east. You keep this going all the way to Christmas Eve. Here comes this cold air getting it all the way to the eastern seaboard just in time for Christmas Eve. And then the next question you wonder is there any moisture, Mitch? But I stopped this for Christmas morning. Well below average temperatures settle in. 10, 15 degrees below average, maybe even more. You look at the GFS, what does it show? We're going forward here in time. The latest GFS, I can tell you, has ticked a little bit further east compared to its latest runs. But the GFS, latest one, here comes the cold air next Monday afternoon. We're getting into next Wednesday evening. So this is about 8 days from now. Look at this cold front. This is a massive cold front, well below average temperatures, dropping 20, 25, maybe as much as 30 degrees below average, dropping down to this area. Arctic boundary right here. When I tell you this is an Arctic boundary, it is. It's separating an Arctic air mass between an above average compared to this time of year air mass. This drops down, and it just comes down and uppercuts the central U.S. and the eastern U.S. Literally, it looks like a fist coming up and just punching the eastern seaboard. And then we stop this here. Just in general, in the GFS, it is much more quicker with the latest GFS. Comes through, swings through, brings the entire eastern and central U.S. well below average temperature-wise for your Christmas Eve. Everybody. You compare this with what, let's stop it right here, for example. 240 hours out, 10 days out, right? A day before Christmas Eve. And you compare this with what the European is showing 10 days out. You can obviously tell the big difference, right? All the cold air is further west. GFS, it's further east. But if you look at the the GEFS ensembles, which is running right now, here comes the cold air. And yeah, it's definitely, it's even further east than the GFS. It's coming through, it's dropping down. Here it comes. We're getting into next Thursday morning. This is around, if you're wondering what day we are, sometimes I'm really bad about mentioning the dates. It's December 22nd. So a few days before Christmas. Cold air dropping into the lower 48. It starts to make its way into the south and southeast. And this looks, the GEFS ensembles look colder than the GFS, the operational run, but so much different. You look at the run prior, and it looks like, if you compare this GFS ensemble with the last one, it's ticked east, which is good news for people in the east who want cold. The trend and the weird trend today has been, is this going to dump further west or east? Because everybody wants to know if it's going to snow, but the age-old rule here, and especially in the South, is you got to get the cold air here first. Everybody wants to see these crazy model runs of showing snow all the way to North Florida. But the important thing is, the note is you got to get the cold air here first. I know that sounds very basic, very a surface value thing, but it is so important. It really is. This is the latest GFS. I'm going to back it up 4 runs. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, let's back it up 3 runs. So this takes us all the way back to the overnight run of the GFS. See how it dumps really far west? Let's do a 3-run trend all the way to the current GFS. 1, 2, 3, and there it is. You see how that huge blue area troughing colder than average temperatures? Don't focus too much on this. Focus on the ridge, that positive PNA that builds over the west. This forces the cold air to dump into the central and eastern U.S., and it's not going to allow it. This is some pretty intense ridging right here, some pretty high heights right here, some higher anomalies, and yeah. So good trends this afternoon, this evening. It's a tricky situation. A lot of people want to know, is it going to snow, Mitch? Is it going to snow? Is it going to snow? You look at the latest GFS. It tries to pop off a system right here. About a week from today, and this system has been showing up a lot, but it kind of gets sheared out, just kind of fizzles out. There's a lot of Gulf moisture down here, though. Doesn't really do anything. And then here comes the Arctic boundary, and has a surface low associated with it. Therefore, you got a rain turning to heavy snow and Arctic air behind it, and it wants to drop snow from Green Bay all the way to Shreveport, Louisiana. Moves into, all the states you see right here. And I'm not going to focus on the details with this, because this we look at the run prior to this. This is what it looked like. The run prior to that. So there is a storm signal associated with the Arctic boundary, guys. But we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know where the push is going to be. We don't know once this cold air settles in like it does right here. Is there going to be some kind of other low pressure that pops up down here? And look at the date, December 24th to 25th. That's our money time frame. If we can get something magical in that time frame, I mean, it would be special, right? For anybody who doesn't want snow at Christmas time, man, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, that man, y'all got to find some joy out there, right? But here we go. Huge dome of cold air over the southeast and eastern U.S. for Christmas time, and it's just waiting for a storm to pop off, but it never does. But it's one run, guys. One run, and you can't focus so much on that. But I can tell you the latest European, same kind of deal. But the European, remember, dumps all the cold air west. But here it goes. Associated with that Arctic front, it wants to have a big system with it. So just look at the trend of, hey, there could be a big system associated with this Arctic front. But where is the Arctic front going to set up? And is there going to be a surface low with it? And after it moves through, are we going to have any Gulf moisture? If you look at the GFS ensembles that are running right now, when you look at it, don't take it as gospel or anything like that, but it tells you, hey, there's a signal for maybe some moisture, very cold, very close to cold air, but I don't have much confidence in this late weekend storm. A lot of people think it could trend northwest, but I don't believe it will. We get into early next week. Here comes some moisture showing up. This was also a tricky time frame. It got a little bit of snow showing up on the ensemble run. And this is something that Weather Bell has. I really like it. It basically blends all the members together to create one run. But there's some moisture around, but there's not a lot of cold air around. Then you're getting about 3 or 4 days before Christmas. And then here you go. You start to see some moisture around, but it's everywhere, right? And the reason you're seeing all this moisture up here and down here is because it's picking up on just numerous different storms. But we're not going to have numerous different storms. It just makes up of all the ensemble runs. But then you got pink down here. You got all kinds of crazy looking stuff. Then we're coming up for Christmas and it looks like you got a system, but we don't know what's going to happen. But my gut tells me that we will, once we get the cold air settled in, we're going to at least have one opportunity for some kind of overrunning, meaning you're going to have some Gulf moisture that's going to flirt with this cold air, guys. That's what my gut tells me. Not associated with the front necessarily, but I think once we get the cold air in, we're going to at least have one opportunity for the moisture to hit that cold air. But who sees it? We just don't know. We don't. So let's go on and flip it. Let's talk about the severe weather. Right now, we have a tornado watch for all these counties. Still counties in eastern and southeastern areas of Texas. This includes Shreveport, Louisiana, and then even several counties in southern Arkansas. We got an ongoing severe weather threat. If we look at radar scope out of the Shreveport area right now, we got a tornado warning right here south of Alexandria. This is probably more in the range of the Baton Rouge radar. That's why you're getting kind of a sloppy look at that cell. But these are the storms ongoing right now as of 7:18 Eastern time. It's 6:18 out here now. And, not a widespread tornado warnings, but any of these could pop off another tornado warning. This storm right here is starting to get that look, so watch out. Arcadia, Louisiana, and any cities right into this area. But there's a lot of people going live right now. Just, Shreveport looks like they're picking up a lot of heavy rain with training of these storms going through. But please be aware, even as we're getting into this area tonight, these storms will begin to move in. And just be careful. It's overnight tonight. We'll talk about that here in a second. So let's go on and look at that. As we get into the overnight hours, these storms will move into Louisiana. But you notice, I'll stop it right here. This is a couple hours before midnight or around midnight. You see these storms, they still got that little kidney bean look to them, that little hook. So even though this is turning into more of a consolidated line of storms, as it's approaching Jackson a little bit later tonight, it still has that look to it. But then we're getting into the overnight hours, storms moving through central and southern areas of Mississippi. It's kind of getting elongated. It's kind of tilting, if you will. You still got ingredients down here in southeast Louisiana of some nasty storms. Please be careful down here, even as we're waking up tomorrow morning. But as we're getting into tomorrow, the ingredients begin to build again down here in this region. And that is why we have that enhanced region down here. It's pretty large, too. For bigger cities like New Orleans, Mobile, this line of storms kind of gets a tilt to it as the surface low kind of slows down and stalls and kind of spins away. Therefore, the forcing of these storms kind of lose somewhat of its progression eastern movement, if that makes any sense. But listen, the dynamics are going to be supportive for tornadoes again tomorrow. A 10% risk of a tornado, and then a 10% risk of a significant tornado of EF2 or higher within 25 miles of any given location. It's a big deal tomorrow, guys, just as big as it has been today. And, you know, you look at, and we're going to give you another update on this tomorrow morning, but you look how this unfolds tomorrow. And, yeah, this has this look. It's going to be a nasty day again in southern areas of Mississippi near New Orleans. And then you're going to have another sector right here of storms you need to watch in southern Alabama. And this gets its move on as we get into tomorrow evening. But, I mean, we're not done with this. We're going to be dealing with a lot of nasty weather in this area over the next 48 to 72 hours, all the way into North Florida. But for you folks worried, tomorrow, I'll give you an extensive update tomorrow on the severe weather threat. We'll try to figure this out for you guys. But stay safe overnight, guys. It's going to get kind of rough. For my folks up here in the northern plains, man, my nose itches. I'm so sorry. Not trying to pick boogers in front of you guys. Obviously, I'm doing a video. My nose just itches really bad. But surface low spinning right here. It stalls out. It's not moving much. So it initially tries to pull some more moisture out of the Ohio Valley right into here. A huge tug of moisture comes up, kind of an odd setup, cold air into this area. And I want to mention this, you know, for my folks up here in UP and Michigan, northern Wisconsin, and just areas of Michigan in general, are getting into Wednesday, tomorrow evening. Huge tug of moisture gets pulled into this area, and you guys could get some very heavy snow. I mean, even down to Milwaukee, Green Bay, northern half of Wisconsin, and then the snow eventually as we're getting to Thursday afternoon. I'm sorry, overnight Wednesday into Thursday morning, some heavy snow moves into the UP and Michigan. We'll see how much this accumulates, but yeah, kind of just an area not a lot of people are talking about. A little secondary low pops off here and throws a ton of moisture into some cold air into this area. Therefore, you're going to get a lot of snow pretty quickly, too. Look at all this snow that's going to fall over the next couple days up here in northeast areas of Minnesota. Pretty impressive. Have a viewer that listens in from that area. It's pretty awesome. You know, this is an area of the country that probably a whole lot of people haven't been in, but I mean, there's got some kind of lake enhancement up here where over 3 feet of snow showing up here on the northwest shoreline of Lake Superior. Pretty impressive. But there's going to be an area right here in northern Wisconsin where some areas can get over a foot of snow, but the whole entire UP and Michigan, especially the western area, is going to get several inches of snow. So go on and expect that. But it's the time of the year. I know that it's certainly not surprising for you folks up here. Let's briefly talk about this winter storm, and we'll give you a more extensive update on this tomorrow night, right before it moves in. But really, as early as tomorrow late evening, probably getting closer a couple hours before midnight, the moisture begins to move into the higher elevations of Virginia, higher elevations, like 4,000 feet up in the air, West Virginia, and then Maryland. And look at this pink. This is freezing rain for these areas. And then this helps to crash the column. The temperatures cool down. They get at or just below freezing, and it's enough for an ice storm in these areas. And you see these pockets of pink all the way down to Boone, Banner Elk area. I would not be surprised if the Boone in those areas, in these higher elevations in far northwest North Carolina, especially the eastern slopes, see a glaze of ice. I certainly think it's going to be possible, and maybe some impactful ice. We'll see, but these eastern slopes right here are certainly going to favor some significant ice. It's going to be an impactful ice storm, I think, for these regions, and this will move into these areas, and some of the peaks and even the valleys will begin to crash, and freezing rain will be falling. We're getting all the way until about daybreak Thursday morning. I mean, I really think this is going to be a significant ice storm for these areas. It's starting to get talked about a lot more now, but you know, you could briefly start off as maybe some sleet or freezing rain in Washington, D.C., and then you'll quickly switch to rain. But this continues. You know, this is the HRRR model, but it looks like it's going to be an ice storm that lasts for maybe 12 to 18 hours in this region. And then this moves into Pennsylvania, sleet, the snow, and but you still are going to be left with a lot of freezing drizzle down here. As far as ice totals with this, over a half an inch of ice is now predicted in the far western areas of Maryland and then areas of eastern West Virginia and western Virginia. A quarter inch ice totals widespread, quarter inch to half inch. This is well above ice storm criteria. The hills of southern areas of Pennsylvania, you guys are going to get a lot of ice too. And so this is going to be very impactful. But moving forward here, we're seeing how this unfolds. Nothing has changed for the interior Northeast. This certainly looks like it's going to be an impactful interior Northeast snowstorm, but nothing too crazy, nothing too wild or anything like that. I think several inches of snow is going to have a chance to fall in these areas. And, anywhere from 5 to maybe it's 12 inches of snow, just widespread. We'll get a little bit more detail on this tonight. I know I left you guys hanging tonight, but trust me, we'll get more detail tomorrow night, and we'll try to figure this one out for you guys. But that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and have yourselves a great night. Stay safe out there. Stay safe.